Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 28th of February and we will be dealing with three very important topics which are in news. The first is NASA's Punch mission. This mission will be launched today by using the SpaceX spacecrafts. 4 satellites will be deployed in the low Earth orbit. For what purpose? For studying the sun. For studying the outer layer of the sun, that is corona, solar winds and the coronal mass ejections. These phenomena definitely have a lot of impacts on the earth. They can impact the GPS, that is geopositioning systems. They can impact the communication systems. They can also have an impact on the overall climate. So, to study these phenomena on the outer layer of the sun, this Punch mission of NASA is going to, do that. Next is climate change limits cleanup efforts by accelerating algal growth. Now, this is a study done on the Thames River of London. Actually, algal growth happens due to multiple factors. One of the factors is the excess nutrients from the agricultural runoff in agricultural fields when we apply fertilizers, and when they run off into the water bodies or rivers, there they cause algal growth or algal blooms, which we call them. Another factor is rising temperatures. Due to rising temperature also algal growth happens. Now researchers have found the data on this Thames River over many years in the past, and they say that the nutrient growth or nutrient availability in the river is less. But yes, algae is growing due to rising temperatures, and rising temperatures are happening due to climate change. This is the main reason behind the algal bloom or algal growth in the Thames River as of now. And next, today we are starting the thematic discussion which we have undertaken, that is chapter by chapter discussion of the economic survey. We are now into the 4th chapter of economic survey, and 4th chapter is all about inflation dynamics. We'll be talking about the global inflation in one segment, that is today, and tomorrow we will be also talking about the inflation in India, the factors responsible and the interventions done by the government to manage the inflation. Obviously, after this, we will be dealing with the MCQs based on these 3 topics and discuss the answers to the MCQs of yesterday. So, NASA's Punch mission. Polarimetry to unify the corona and heliosphere. So, this is the full form of the Punch mission to study the sun's outer atmosphere and understand solar winds and coronal mass ejections, CMEs. This is the main purpose of this Punch mission. This will be launched today, that is February 28, 2025, using SpaceX to carry 4 satellites in the low Earth orbit. Low Earth orbit is somewhere around 1000-1200 kilometers maximum from the Earth's surface. Now, mission details. We know that February 28 is the launch date by SpaceX in the low Earth orbit. 4 suitcase-sized satellites, each weighing around 64 kgs. Mission life is 2 years. Main instrument, 3 wide field imagers, WFI, 1 narrow field imager. And these imagers definitely will be taking the 3D images of the sun and analyzing the phenomena happening on the outer layer of the sun. Purpose, it aims to study the sun's corona, the outer atmosphere, and track the solar winds and the coronal mass ejections. These phenomena have a direct impact on space weather, which can affect communication systems, GPS, and the electricity grids also on the earth. I forgot that, but yes, it can impact electricity supply on the earth. If the solar winds are too much in intensity over there, then there are solar or I would say extreme heat waves over here on the earth. The temperature rises, due to which electricity transmission through the grids is impacted. Understanding solar weather better can help predict its effects on earth in a much better way, and we can develop kind of a defensive mechanism on the earth against such kind of extra terrestrial phenomena. Now, key features of Punch. Polarization measurement it is going to do. It will use polarized light to study the sun. It will use polarizing filters to measure how sunlight is scattered by particles in the corona, giving scientists detailed information about the solar activity, what kind of, I would say, winds are blowing, with what intensity the winds are blowing over there, all these things, what are the temperatures and all. So, we will be able to understand and know what is going to be the impact of it on the earth. 3D imaging, a 3D image will be created. Punch will use 4 cameras working together to create 3D images of the sun's corona, offering a unique look at solar winds and CMEs. Continuous imaging, the cameras will take images of the sun every 4 minutes and capture both polarized and unpolarized light at different times. Wide and narrow field imaging, the wide field imagers WFI will capture a large area of sun's atmosphere, while the narrow field imagers will focus on specific regions for more detailed observations. So this is what the key features are. So the scientific impact of it, tracking solar winds and CMEs, basically coronal mass ejections. It will help scientists understand that how solar winds and CMEs form and they evolve and move through the space. Now, why it is important for us? Because it is impacting multiple, I would say, phenomena on the earth. Solar atmosphere it is impacting, then it can cause rising temperatures over here. It can disrupt the electricity transmission, it can disrupt the satellite communication. So it is important to study these phenomena on the earth. This information is important for predicting when these solar events might reach the earth. Space weather prediction is also very much important. Data from Punch will help improve predictions of the space weather events. This will help reduce the impact of solar storms on earth and space missions also. We'll be able to plan our missions well, we'll be able to secure or safeguard our missions which are already deployed over there from such phenomena. We can develop a defensive mechanism. So why it matters? Because of its impact on earth it matters. As I said, that the satellite communication, the GPS system, the power grids on earth all are or can be impacted. Space exploration, solar weather can also affect spacecraft. So understanding it is important for protecting both Earth's technology and future space missions. Better predictions can be done. The mission will improve our ability to predict space weather, helping us prepare for its effects in a much better way. Next is climate change limits cleanup efforts by accelerating algal growth. So algae is found in the water bodies. You can see this green color, I would say, growth in the water bodies is algae. Now this algae can grow due to multiple reasons. It can grow if excess nutrients are available to them, nitrogen, phosphorus and such like. And where are these nutrients found? These nutrients are found in the fertilizers. Fertilizers, when they are used in the agricultural fields and when they are washed away, these are called as agricultural runoffs, and they enter the water bodies, those nutrients cause algae to grow, causing algal blooms. Now, other factors are also responsible for algal blooms, means algal blooms can be caused by other factors apart from agricultural runoffs, nutrient, I would say, availability. That other factor is high temperatures, and high temperatures are caused due to climate change or global warming nowadays. Now this study was done on the Thames River. A researcher from University of Waterloo has found that climate change is increasing the risk of algal blooms in river Thames. Now the researchers have studied the nutrient availability in river Thames over the years, and they say that nutrient availability is very less. Then what is causing these algal blooms? Rising temperatures. And due to these algal blooms, it is becoming difficult to clean up this river. The study published in Communications, Earth and Environment analyzed the river's 150-year water quality record to understand the impact of climate change on the river health. So this is what we need to know. But yes, what is algal bloom? Algal bloom, let me tell you, is also known as eutrophication. This is another word UPSC can ask you. I think in the past it has asked also. So eutrophication is when algae growth is excess in a water body. Now, as I said, that algal growth can happen due to agricultural runoffs. These are agricultural fields. Nitrogen, phosphorus, these are available in the fertilizers we apply over here. And when they run off and enter the water bodies, they cause algae to bloom. So algal blooms due to presence of nutrients happens. Nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus. Now, bacteria uses oxygen in this water body to break down this algae. This algae is broken down, oxygen used by the bacteria. So the decayed algae is over here, it is lying This is kind of a part of a food cycle over there, a food chain over there. But yes, you need to understand one thing, that these bacteria using the oxygen to break down the algae leaves less oxygen for the aquatic, I would say, species like fish and all. This makes the fish die because of less availability of oxygen, because the oxygen has been used by the bacteria to break down this algae. And when algae was in excess due to these agricultural runoffs, or due to any reason these algal blooms happened, more oxygen will be required to break down that algae by the bacteria, and less oxygen will be available for fishes. So this is causing the fish to die, and that impacts the marine ecosystem. This is what you need to understand. So while some algae are harmless, certain type of algae such as cyanobacteria or blue-green algae can be toxic. These toxic blooms can harm aquatic life by depleting oxygen levels in the water, suffocating fish and other organisms over there. They can also release harmful toxins that are dangerous to animals and humans. In addition to ecological harm, algal bloom can increase the cost of water treatment and limit the use of water for activities like boating and swimming. So economic impact can also be there. Now the key findings: phosphorus reduction. Over the last 40 years, phosphorus loads in the river have decreased by about 80% due to better wastewater treatment and improved agricultural practices. So this has happened over the years. Climate change impact. Despite these improvements, rising river temperatures caused by climate change are increasing the likelihood of algal blooms. So this is what the researchers have found out. Phosphorus has reduced by 80%, but climate change is causing the algal bloom. And this algal bloom on one side is harmful for the aquatic ecosystem, the marine life, marine species, and on the other hand, it increases the efforts to clean up the river. Algal bloom types: spring diatom blooms and summer cyanobacterial blooms. These are toxic, the cyanobacterial blooms. Impacts of algal blooms: shading out and suffocating aquatic life. We know why. Decreased oxygen levels in the water as the algae decomposes. We know why, because the bacteria is using the oxygen to decompose or break down the algae. Releasing potentially toxic cyanobacteria. That is again toxic for the marine ecosystem, as well as if it enters the humans, it is bad for the human health as well. Economic and recreational impacts: algal blooms can increase the cost of drinking water treatment, because we need to do more efforts for treating such kind of water. They can also limit recreational activities such as sailing, fishing and swimming. Phosphorus and water quality management. The phosphorus management remains crucial in preventing algal blooms, since algae needs phosphorus to grow. Despite the reductions in phosphorus levels are still high enough to allow algal growth in some water bodies. The study suggests that water quality management efforts are not fully effective in the face of rising water temperatures. So rising water temperatures is the main reason, and phosphorus content has been reduced to 80%. Still 20% are there, and thereby phosphorus is causing the algal blooms. So this is what information you need to understand, that phosphorus leads to algal blooms. Now the study's significance. River Thames dataset is the world's longest continuous water quality record, and countries like India, which are in the pursuit of cleaning up the rivers, definitely can take a lot of understanding from this process. It offers a detailed history of how human activity and policies have affected the river quality, and study provides a unique historical perspective on how socio-economic, agricultural and industrial activities have influenced the river's health. The research highlights how climate change is creating new challenges in managing the water quality over there, and that needs to be tackled. So we don't know how climate change is impacting our lives, and scientific researchers are bringing out more and more related phenomena to it. Obviously, these phenomena are not positive phenomena, these phenomena are negative ones. But yes, we need to be tackling the root cause, that is climate change, for preserving such kind of ecosystems. Now, economic survey, chapter 4, inflation dynamics. So this is something which is concerning everyone. Inflation simply means price rise. Price rise can happen due to supply demand mismatch. And inflation, if it is too high, it will definitely limit economic growth. If it is too low, it will still limit economic growth because it will not be good for the GDP growth rate. So it should be in permissible limits. Government of India has set permissible limits as 2 to 6%, 4 plus minus 2%. So this is there, but yes, one thing we need to know and understand that containing inflation, government can undertake multiple efforts, but there are certain international factors which are out of control factors for any government, and due to these factors inflation happens. Like for example, oil prices go up internationally, you can't control that, and 85% of your oil is being imported in case of India. The oil becomes expensive, everything else becomes expensive. So these kind of phenomena are there. Climate change, global warming, it is causing a lot of disasters. So these are called as climate induced disasters. So these climate induced disasters due to climate change or global warming are causing a lot of hardships. They can lead to reduction, or I would say loss of crop yield, and loss of crop yield will result in loss of supply. And lack of supply of agricultural products or food products will definitely lead to rise in prices of the food products. Again, out of our control. But yes, we have to manage inflation in all these circumstances. We cannot run away from it. So, global overview of inflation trends. Global inflation surge in 2022 happened. Why? Because Russia-Ukraine war started in 2022. We were recovering from COVID and this war started. Second, there were climate shocks also, like there were heat waves and all in Europe that year. So, inflation peaked globally at 8.7% in 2022. But in 2024, inflation moderated. Inflation rates are expected to moderate globally to 5.7% in 2024, indicating a reduction in pressure despite lingering challenges in certain sectors. India's inflation trend, if I talk about, in India, retail inflation eased from 5.4% in FY24 to 4.9% in FY25. However, food prices remain a challenge due to their substantial weight in the consumer price index. So yes, in India, largely inflation is under control, but food inflation is high, and around consumer price index, which is the index which we use for measuring inflation, 40% of that is food products in that index. So yes, that remains a challenge still for India. The role of food inflation, retail inflation in India. Food inflation plays a crucial role in India's overall inflation rate, as food accounts for nearly 40% of CPI, that is consumer price index or retail inflation index. Food price volatility is there. The rise in food prices, particularly for select commodities like cereals, vegetables and oils, has been a major contributor to headline inflation. Consumer Food Price Index, CFPI, this index tracks food inflation specifically and remains a key indicator of overall inflationary trends in India. So yes, food prices definitely are concerning. The global inflation trends, if I talk about the global inflation trends, the global resilience amid tightening monetary policies. Monetary tightening by central banks is happening, and due to this monetary tightening, specifically in developed countries, the financial instruments over there are becoming attractive, due to which flight of capital from developing countries is happening, leaving the currencies of those developing countries weaker. Now, if currencies of developing countries is becoming weak and there are import deficits in those countries or trade deficits in those countries, then obviously the imports of that country will become more expensive, thereby causing inflation in those countries. So this is how tightening of monetary policy by central banks is impacting inflation positively in those countries where monetary policy is being tightened. But if those countries are developed countries, then it is causing rise in inflation in developing and underdeveloped countries, because the financial instruments in those developed countries where monetary policy is being tightened, the financial instruments are becoming more attractive. Impact on inflation. Tight monetary policies have had positive effects in reduction of inflationary pressures across many countries, reflecting successful disinflation trends as well. But yes, in many countries it is causing inflation. Decline in core inflation. Core inflation is non-food and non-fuel, which excludes volatile categories. These are considered as volatile categories, fuel and food. So, it has declined globally due to falling international commodity prices. Impact of policy measures, monetary policy interventions, particularly interest rate hikes, have played a critical role in stabilizing prices. Food inflation trends, global easing with divergence in emerging economies. The global food inflation decline is there, has shown a downward trend driven by improved global supply conditions. But emerging markets divergence, countries like Brazil, India and China have experienced divergent patterns in food inflation due to adverse weather. Means divergent patterns means their food inflation remains to be high because of adverse climate, domestic supply chain challenges and increased local demand. So, food inflation remains to be high in these countries. Now, in the next segment, we will be talking about inflation in India, domestic inflation and all, what are the factors, what are the steps taken by the government and all, and probably we'll be ending up with chapter 4 in the next video. Now, coming to the MCQs. First, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Punch mission aims to study the sun's corona. It consists of 4 satellites launched in the low Earth orbit. Only one, only two, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. Second, which of the following can be affected by solar winds? Communication systems, GPS, electricity transmission grids. Only one and 2, all of the above or none of the above. Consider the following assertion and reasoning statements and mark the correct ones. Assertion, algal blooms lead to death of fishes in water bodies. Reasoning, the bacteria present in the water body use the oxygen to break down the algae. Both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation on A. Both A and R are true and R is not the correct explanation of A. A is true, R is false, A is false, R is true. Carefully answer this question. Fourth, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Inflation touched its peak in 2022 and has eased in 2024 at the global and Indian level. Overall inflation in India has been in permissible limits. Only 1, only 2, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. So, carefully answer them. Now, yesterday's MCQs. Which of these countries do not touch a coastline with Caspian Sea? So, Caspian Sea, 5 countries are touching coastlines. Russia, Iran, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. Sorry, Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, not Uzbekistan. So, Azerbaijan, Iran and Russia. The encircled ones are touching. So, Kazakhstan is not the answer, Russia is not the answer, Turkmenistan again is not the answer, Georgia is the answer. Georgia is over here. It is not touching the Caspian Sea, it is touching the Black Sea. So, this is what you need to know and understand. Second, consider the following statements with respect to Caspian Sea and mark the correct one. Caspian Sea is the largest enclosed body of water in the world, which is very true. The northern Caspian Sea has relatively shallow waters, this is true, and more salinity, no, it has less salinity. So, till here the statement is correct, but this is less salinity. The southern Caspian Sea has deep waters and more salinity. The northern has shallow waters and less salinity. So, this statement is wrong, only one is correct. So, A is going to be the correct option. Third, which of these are the effects of bioaccumulation? Chemicals can increase in concentration as they move up the food chain. Yes, this is correct. They can increase in concentration. Over time, the buildup of chemicals can reach harmful levels. Yes, this is true. Causing toxicity and adverse health effects. Yes, this is very true. So, both 1 and 2 are correct with respect to bioaccumulation. Which of these harmful chemicals are found in black plastics? Bromine, yes, it is an anti-inflammatory agent. Cadmium also yes, because cadmium, lead, mercury, because this black plastic is obtained from the recycled electronic waste. So, all 4 can be found and hence D, all of the above is the correct option for this. Now, with this we come to an end of today's session and I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. I am not repeating it today. Namaste, Jai Hind.